And it hits me, oh my gosh, this is that triangle.
You know, there's explanation for everything that occurred in the Rendlesham Forest incident that doesn't involve aliens at all.
It was completely silent. It comes right over our heads.
He saw a classic flying saucer really standing in the clearing.
He turned over to my father and held his hand, and he looked in his eyes and he said, "We're not alone."
Welcome to Podcast UFO for our live show. We're live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on podcastufo.com. During the show, feel free to participate live in our chat room. And don't forget to like us on our very active Facebook page.
Hello and welcome to our show. I'm Martin Willis, your host, and I'm coming at you live and jet-lagged back on my mountaintop in Maine. And our guest tonight is Ken Pfeifer, and we are talking about UFO photos tonight. But before our guest, we have Alejandro Rojas coming up with the news in a minute. One thing, I don't think I've ever talked about future guests coming up on the show, but I'm really thrilled about this one next week. And that's not at all to take anything away from our guest this evening, but I do want to mention this for a couple of reasons. It's going to be the first radio show interviewing Chris Mellon of the Department of Defense, former Department of Defense. He will be on next week. And you may remember him with the recent article interview at the Huffington Post with Leslie Kean. And that kind of went viral. So he will be on June 1st, live next week. You are welcome to call in during that show, as always. Use the chat room for questions, or you can even email me some questions at martin@podcastufo.com. Now, if you haven't seen that article, I do encourage you to read it. Easiest thing I can tell you right now is just to go to Google and type in Chris Mellon UFOs or Chris Mellon Huffington Post, and Mellon at MELLON, and you will see the great article and interview that Leslie Kean did. So anyway, that's coming up next week. Pretty excited about that, and also excited about our show this evening. I want to thank all of you listeners who support the show, and if you can't support the show, we still appreciate you in every way, and you can listen to the whole show for free right here every Wednesday at 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on podcastufo.com. There's also a chat room there, and we also run the full show as a podcast on the Dark Matter Digital Network on Thursdays at 10 to midnight Eastern Standard Time. So, Alejandro, how you doing?
I am doing well. How are you?
Good. Like I said, a little bit jet-lagged, but just a couple of days I'll be back to normal.
Hey, I got this great interview with that Chris Mellon guy that I'm posting on Monday. I hope you can catch that.
Yeah, that's nice of you. Yeah, you scooped him. Yeah,
you got him. So that's really exciting, though. It seems like a great guy and well versed on UFOs. So that ought to be really interesting.
Yeah, there's things I want to say now, but I just I have to really save it because it's he's told me some things that are really interesting, and it's going to be a show that no one wants to miss. Mm-hmm. So
wow, this is so crazy that just a couple days ago I'm talking to you and you're allegedly in Russia.
That's right.
But now you're back allegedly in Maine and you sound the same.
I know. It's just like, did they really land on the moon? It's really hard to know.
I know.
Yeah.
And are you really just like down the street here or in a van?
Yeah.
With headphones and...
Well, I love it. My headset that I brought to Russia cost $49, and my equipment in my studio is, more than 20 times that amount, and they sound the same.
Yeah.
Oh well, what are you going to do?
Yeah, what are you going to do? I hear you, brother.
Yeah. So what's going on out there for the news?
Oh, there's all these UFOs and stuff. Would you
like to elaborate on any of those?
Sure. So, yeah, there's one video that's kind of going around that is a lot of fun. And this was a MUFON report in Fairbanks, Alaska. The video was captured at 3 a.m. on May 13th, so just recently. And it is pretty strange. The witness says they were on patrol, so I'm guessing they're a security guard. I don't see that, that they say necessarily. And saw this strange light. The person says the light was moving around strangely. And he even said that it messed with his head. He had to shake his head because he couldn't focus on the light. But more interesting is the video, because the video does show this light, and it's just kind of a light. I don't know that the light itself was that interesting, especially because the person's moving. Hard to tell the movement of the object. But then it kind of breaks into several pieces. Other lights come out of it and float off, and it's really strange. I don't know that I've seen a video like this before, and I'm not sure what it was.
Yes, I've been hearing about this, and because I've been traveling, I haven't seen it, but I've been hearing about this, and there's a lot of talk about it.
Yeah.
So, and it kind of reminds me, I had Erica Lukes on the show last week, and I talked to her about her first sighting, and sounds similar. She said it was orange orb, and things were dropping out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have heard, I've heard anecdotally other sightings. Of course, the Rendlesham Forest famous sighting, they saw, an object, Colonel Holt even out in the forest there in the UK, but at a U.S. base. He saw with a bunch of other guys this object move through the forest, and then it broke into several pieces,
right,
and these objects all flew off. Kind of like what this video is depicting. Now, I suppose it could be fake, and it would be smart to do it in a subtle way like this video is, but I don't know. It looks to be genuine. It's still under investigation by MUFON, so it's interesting. So
now, have we heard anything about Mark D'Antonio taking a look at this?
No, that's a great question, because he is very active in the Open Minds UFO News forum on Facebook, and I haven't had a chance to comment or ask him what he thought, and I don't think I saw any comments. I haven't yet from him on that, but you're right. He is, of course, MUFON's photo and video analyst, and he always is making us, upsetting us by coming up with prosaic answers to these exciting videos. So I'm really excited to see what he has to say.
Yeah.
Because I can't figure out what the heck this thing could be.
I know. And you're right about Mark. He's only seen one that he said is, all he'll say about it is very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
He won't even say, he won't really commit to it. But yeah, he does often find, and he's, as far as I know, he's quite right on those.
Yeah, I mean, I used to go to him and be like, come on, okay, look at this one. What's this then, smart guy? And he would come back and be like, there's the most exciting one was even just a few months ago. And he happened to be out here speaking for Phoenix MUFON right before I got a copy of this photo. And I think it was sent from Lee Spiegel. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is one of them. What's this, buddy? And he looked at it and he said, I don't know, but, just looking at really quickly, I think it might be a water droplet.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh. And he pointed out a couple of things, and it's like, how did I miss that? Yeah, I think you got it. And sure enough, after further analysis, he was correct. But
yeah, that was,
which is usually the case with this guy.
Yeah. Yep. His and people like him can make like an instant assessment. Like it's just like, well, because they've seen so many things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And especially with his work he does with the special effects and all.
Right. So he does some exciting special effects. In fact, he, it's a Doug Trumbull's project, who's a special effects guru. They did the Apple commercial for the iPad Pro. So the iPad Pro was a big deal because it's a bigger iPad and it's more powerful. And the commercial is really cool with all of this kind of space stuff. And yeah, they made that. And
Wow.
their stories about how they make these things are pretty incredible. But it's a really cool commercial.
Wow. Haven't seen it. Wow.
Yeah, you have to check that out.
Will do. And what else do we have happening out there?
Well, we have another photo, and this is they say it was a triangle shape, and all you see in the image are a couple of bright lights, but it's kind of an interesting case. This one's from Charlottesville, Virginia. Again, this was recently. This was May 21st. The video was taken at 9 p.m., and the witness and her husband in this one were driving home, and they pointed out some object in the sky, and they said they saw this big triangle UFO hovering over the road, and they took a picture, and they did get a couple lights in the picture, so yeah, people can take a look at that. But that's another interesting sighting recently.
Wow. Have to check that one out.
Yeah. So, but there is one more, I guess, news story that's out there I want to talk to you about.
Good. Okay.
We talked a little bit about it before, but I figure since people are seeing it out there, you and I ought to talk about it. I haven't written on it because it's another non-story, in my humble opinion, which is, I guess Steve Bassett was in the UK, and we've talked before about how these UK tabloids are doing a terrible job about covering this topic. In fact, you know, right now they're jumping on these secure team videos, 10-team videos that are hoax videos all the time. So they like to post these hoax videos. But Steve Bassett was out there visiting. And Steve Bassett, if you've met him or you've seen him lecture, like I have I think at least once a year for the last 12 years or so. And every lecture he says, they're going to release the UFO files in just a couple months, or it's going to be this year. And he's always said that. And unfortunately, it's never happened. But sure enough, during his visit, he said this. And they made a big story out of it. So they write this story, big headline, Obama's going to release the files. Oh. And so this has kind of gone viral out there, and lots of people are posting it and everything. But, you know, the source is Stephen Bassett, who's been saying this for years. So I think Stephen Bassett is great what he's doing. I mean, mostly what he's doing out there. He's done some great work, and he's definitely getting people excited and talking about all of this. But unfortunately, he's just a very enthusiastic person, and he's very hopeful, and he always feels we're on the brink of getting UFO disclosure. But if you see this story out there, unfortunately, there's nothing that's really based on coming out of the White House or anything. This is Mr. Bassett again. But, you know, it shows the tabloids how you know, blowing comment like that out of proportion gets viewers. And so it's gotten a lot of attention, this headline. Yeah.
You know, it's a responsibility of any journalist to do fact checking, you know, and
yeah.
It's just, you know, I understand a tabloid is different, and they overdo things just for, you know, to make it go viral. But now, you know, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be reading this for the first time and not knowing anything about it. It's just going to
yeah, I've gotten several people asking about it. You probably will too. And just to make people aware before they ask. I mean, and it happens a lot. The UK tabloids pick up our stories often, and they'll often make assumptions and changes to the story, and they'll add inaccurate information, just trying to get the story out quickly. You'll notice that a lot of these, like the Daily Express or the Daily Star or the Daily Mirror, those are the three big ones, or the Sun, they're trying to write like a UFO story every day, and so they don't really check their facts, and they make assumptions, and then they make a story that is accurate, inaccurate. Or unfortunately, what they've done recently is taken stories and they write it as if it's their story, and they did the interview. So they did this to Lee Spiegel recently, where they just took his name out or any reference to the Huffington Post out.
Jeez.
And they did this to Leslie Kane with your upcoming guest, with Chris Mellon. The Daily Express wrote up about Chris and his statements, didn't mention Leslie, didn't
I
mention
saw
the
that.
Huffington Post.
Yeah.
It's really unfortunate. It's unethical, and it goes against what you're supposed to be doing as a journalist. But
and there's some misquoting, and there's there is some assumptions made there that are not correct. And one of the things Chris wants to do when he's on the show next week is to clear up some of those things that are out there.
Right. Yeah. When I wrote my story, I had he gave me a clarification that was not clear.
Right. Well, hey, thanks so much.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me. I'm glad you made it back safely. I hope you're enjoying yourself and in your alleged home in Maine.
That's right. I'm actually on the dark side of the moon, but don't tell anyone.
I knew it.
All right. Okay, so just a little bit about our guest real quick. Ken Pfeifer is Chief Investigator for MUFON, New Jersey, and State Director of MUFON in Vermont and Rhode Island. Ken was 16 years in the military, and in 1991 he was a veteran of Desert Storm. He is also a private pilot, a ufologist, editor, and founder of WorldUFOPhotos.org and WorldUFOPhotosandNews.org. All right, so hang in there just for a quick minute. We'll be right back with Ken Pfeifer right after this quick music break. Well, Ken Pfeifer, welcome to the show.
Martin, hi. How you doing? Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on your show. It's an honor.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm looking forward to it. I actually ran across your website and was really intrigued by some of the photos on there. But first, before we get into that, can you give us your background and what sparked your interest in the very beginning? I don't care if it was 2 years old. You can tell us the whole story.
Yeah, I was basically raised in a little town called National Park, New Jersey. Now, of course, National Park, New Jersey is right on the Delaware River across from the Philadelphia International Airport and the Philadelphia Naval Yard. So I've been looking up into the sky all my life, as a child. And as a matter of fact, we stood on our front lawn there and watched Sputnik fly over on October 4th of 57. I was out there with my mom and dad, and we watched this thing fly over. We were standing there in our front yard. So, these little things like this is what really kind of piqued my interest. And I've been a stargazer all of my life. And after I retired in 2000, I decided to do something about it. And, of course, I heard of MUFON, I started working for George Fowler. I'm sure you're familiar with George. He's my boss. In New Jersey. So, I've been doing UFO research now since I think I started around 2006 is when it all started for me.
Wow. Very interesting. So the Sputnik, that's amazing. You were actually out there. We had a discussion about that. I think it was just last week or perhaps a week before, and how someone was stating that there was a satellite that was an unknown satellite that was up there, because Sputnik was 57. Then the next one was the U.S. in 59, I believe. Not really sure. But anyway, have you yourself had any UFO sighting?
Yes, I've had 6 UFO sightings, and I have a close encounter at Area 51. I have a couple of sightings here I'd like to talk about, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Yeah, now I had a sighting here. Let me see. I have one here. This was my first sighting in. It was autumn of 1974. Is really the first time that I saw something definite that I knew was a. I'm not going to say UFO. I'm going to say alien crafts because you know everyone knows what everyone's thinking when they say UFO, and it's a shame MUFON won't let us say this. They especially when we classify our cases that we investigate, we have to put down unknown. We can't even put down UFO or alien craft or anything, but I'm hoping that changes someday. But it was around autumn 1974. I was on Route 295 in the Brooklyn, New Jersey area, which is really not far from the Delaware River, and it's within the TCA Terminal Control Area of Philadelphia International Airport. So, Brooklyn's very close to the airport there. And this was my first sighting that I'll never forget. It was around 3 a.m., and a friend of mine was driving, me and a friend was driving south on 295, and of course I was a passenger in the car and had the opportunity to look around as I usually do, when all of a sudden we just exited an overpass. We came under an overpass, and at the old Al Joe's bar in Mount Ephraim, an eyewitness of it was a very large bluish-green disc just above the low overcast, and I would guess that the cloud ceiling was around 300 feet, and the brightly lit object was just above it. I could easily make out the round shape of the craft, and before you know it, it was gone. We did lose sight of it because we were driving the other way, and I shouted to my friend Merle, and he did not know what to say. After convincing him that I really did see something, we drove around until the sun came up, looking for the craft, and I remember it like it was yesterday, and the next day in the local newspaper, I believe it was the Woodbury Times back in 74, there was an article about some Deptford police and a few other witnesses seeing the object in the sky. So, Deptford is right there in the area. So I was relieved to see that others saw the object too. And like I said, I've been a stargazer most of my life, and this is one encounter that I'll never, I consider this a close encounter. Anything within 500 feet is what they consider a close encounter, and this really piqued my interest, as you can say.
I'll say it's amazing how different people are affected in different ways when they have, and it just doesn't have to be a UFO sighting. It could be something like what appeared to be a ghost or whatever. Some people are curious like myself and want to know more, and then other people it doesn't seem to faze too much. I'm kind of shocked as I go through and talk to different people and their reactions about it. Or
yes, it is really strange how people react to seeing a UFO. Some of them are excited and hyperventilate, and other ones just they just shrug it off. And quite frankly, I think a lot of these people just don't want to believe it. So they just try to forget it. And like it never happened, essentially. And it's like anything else. If there's a car accident in front of 10 witnesses, you're going to get 10 different stories of what happened in the accident. And it's the same thing with people reporting UFOs. And I take everyone's sighting very seriously. We get very, very few hoax in our investigations, and you can usually pick them out right away. I believe the witness. I have to, I have more to gain by believing a witness than by not believing a witness. Mm-hmm. And, part of one of our, Steve Hudgens, he's the, he's the director of investigations from MUFON. He's been doing a pretty good job. And also Jan Harzan, of course, he's the director. And Steve Hudgens, he's been initiating a lot of new training programs, and the new MUFON University, which is starting to come about, and so they're doing a lot of things in MUFON that are really helping the investigators and also people who venture onto their website. That kind of helps them understand what's going on here in the UFO community. So I'm excited about it, and it's getting better is what it is.
Do you think that Do you get a lot of the Chinese lanterns or drones or anything like that? You were saying that, you don't have very many hoaxes, but I was wondering about the other rise in what you hear of these days is a lot of people are mistakenly seeing either a drone or Chinese lanterns. I mean, do you get a lot of that?
No, not a lot, I would say. We get people who, most of the sightings we get, people see a red orb or a red orange in the red or an orange orb in the sky. The description they give us is not like a Chinese lantern would be. It would basically be floating with the wind, and a lot of these orb sightings we get. These orbs are zigzagging all over the sky, and they're making all these strange maneuvers, and these are things that the Chinese lanterns cannot do. So, every once in a while, we do write off the cases of, IFO, identified flying object, but I would say 9 times out of 10, since I don't like to guess. It would be easy for me to guess and say, oh, it was Chinese lanterns, it was fireflies, it was the ISS flying overhead, it was ball lightning. This is guessing. And if I have to guess it at what a witness saw, I have no other choice but to classify a case as unknown because, I feel I have to prove that these people have to prove what they saw, essentially. So a lot of our cases, especially myself, I write them off as unknown because I'm not going to guess about it. I'm not. I don't. It's unknown. I don't know. So it's that's the way I approach investigating for MUFON. Like I said, I'm the chief investigator for MUFON in Jersey and the state director for MUFON in Vermont and Rhode Island. And that's what I feel MUFON has to do is train a lot of our investigators to approach an investigation like that. If you have to, prove to me it was a plane or prove to me it was a Chinese lantern, but don't guess, and that seems to be one of the main problems that MUFON is having because we have too many investigators out there all over the United States that are guessing and writing a lot of these sincere and legit sightings off as identified flying objects, and I think it's a shame.
Yeah, that can happen, and that's I've heard of that. Cases being closed, not by MUFON per se, but of them just saying something like it was Venus. That's it. That's more like on what you hear a skeptic might say.
And you mentioned Mark D'Antonio. Me and Mark, we've been going back and forth for 10 years now. It's funny, when I first started my World UFO Photos, right now it's the largest in the world. As a matter of fact, in April I got 233,000 views in just April alone. So, wow. My numbers are rising. Yeah. And when I first started that website back in 06, 07, I was excited about it because I was kind of sick and tired of going to a dozen different websites to find photos. And, I'm a show me kind of guy. You show me. I don't want to hear a story. Show me a photo and then tell me the story. And that's what I like. Now, so I was excited about starting this new website, and what I did is, of course, I cannibalized all of MUFON's photos and UFO casebooks and every UFO organization out there. I just downloaded their photos and put them all on one website, and I was excited, and I knew Mark D'Antonio was their specialist over there at MUFON, so I sent him my link, worldufophotos.org, Mark, tell me what you think, and I just couldn't wait for him to get back to me about it. And he, this was the first 800 photos, and these 800 photos were I picked out the best photos, the ones that I thought that were legit. These were the ones that were so-called supposedly proven to be real. And he told me that he said, well, Ken, I can explain every one of them. So this let the air out of my balloon, But at the same time, I'm saying to myself, there's something definitely wrong here, and I'm not quite sure what it is. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay. I consider Mark a friend, but I have had conversations with him before and was shocked at the fact that he just doesn't think that any of these are legit in any type of way. I mean, he is very sharp, and he did. Just a quick funny story. I was going out to Phoenix with a friend, and she took a picture out the window at the desert, and on my window was a little piece of grass at an angle, looked like a perfect disc. You look at the picture, looking out toward the desert, and you see a disc. And so she showed me the picture, and I'm looking at it, I go, you got to be kidding me. This is really something. And, even fooled me, and I showed it to him on my cell phone while we were both in Phoenix. I showed it to him. I go, what do you think of this? And he goes, gee, if I had to guess right now, I'd say there's something on your window.
Well, you said the word guess, and, that kind of sums it all up for me. No, Mark is very intelligent. I see him on TV all the time. As a matter of fact, I saw him on a show last week, and every time he comes on, I got to turn the TV off because I want to jump through the window. But he was on TV, and he there was 3 or 4 things that he didn't debunk. And I believe it was the moon, a lot of findings on the moon thing, and I was kind of impressed by that. But Mark is on all these shows, and he knows what he's doing. He's a professional, but guessing is guessing, and that's the way I look at it. He's not showing me enough proof that. How and why he's coming up with some of these conclusions that he does. And I think he's too quick to write something off as a bug, a bird, a Superman, whatever. And it irritates me is what it does. And another thing is I'm really kind of surprised why MUFON would even have him on as a analyst for photos. But, and I've always said, too, that with the many conferences that MUFON has had in the past and even coming up here, why they never have had a photo presentation at their conference. It's like the Audubon Society not having any photos of birds at a conference. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I've had the privilege of doing a photo presentation a few years back at the out there at the Baltimore Washington Airport. We had a conference out there. It was a separate organization, and as a matter of fact, I'm coming up here in the next month or two. I'm going to be doing a photo presentation for MUFON, Pennsylvania, with John Ventry. He's coming up with a conference up in the Valley Forge area in Philadelphia, and he asked me to do a photo presentation, which I'm just thrilled about doing that. But I'm just wondering why MUFON hasn't had someone. I guess they sure as heck can't get Mark D'Antonio to give a photo presentation because there'd be really nothing to present. You know what I'm saying? It's very puzzling to me, and I'm hoping that of course I volunteered. I have MUFON asked me to come out and do. I could do a 2-hour photo presentation that would knock your socks off. With stories and everything else. And, of course, a lot of these photos, a lot of witnesses submit a lot of photos, great photos, but, there's really no story behind them. Of course, some of them the camera captured. And that's another thing that I'm kind of surprised with MUFON is some of these cases where the witness captured an object, their camera, I should say, captured an object. How can we investigate these cases? I don't even think these cases should make it into the MUFON CMS system because how can you investigate a dot on a photo, especially when the witness didn't see it? So, but it's good for me because I get a lot of photos, photos of UFOs that the camera captured, and I could see why because today's cameras, in the old days when we had the SLR single lens reflex cameras, had the viewfinders. You can look through the viewfinder and you see exactly what you're taking a photo of. But today's cell phones and even some of these cameras with the little screen on them, you really can't see what you're taking a photo. I mean, you can see outlines of what you're taking a photo of, but you really can't see anything in the background. And I think a lot of people have captured alien craft in some of their photos, wedding photos, you name it. They've captured all kind of crafts in their photos, but it's a shame there's really no story behind the photos. But I feel a lot of these things are real because some cameras can see what our eyes can't see, and I think some of these cameras are picking up a lot of good things, especially today's cameras that all the kids have, the phone cameras, and they have between 10 and 20 megapixels, and you can take a dot on a picture and enlarge it, and you'd be surprised of the strange objects that are in these photos.
Right. By the way, anyone could call in, and there is one question up on the message board. People can ask questions on the message board too. The number to call in is 603-967-4030. Now, I had a conversation with Dr. Bruce Maccabee, I don't know, maybe a year ago, and I do recall him saying the number one important thing is the witness, and the photo is secondary, and I just wanted to hear what your opinion is on that statement.
Oh yeah, well, no, I can agree with that. But like I said, a lot of these people are we believe the witness. I believe the witness, especially if they're reporting, if someone is got up the nerve to report something that they've seen in the sky that they've never seen before, you have to take them serious. And with the questionnaire we have, when I investigate a case, we have a very long questionnaire. We have ages, birth dates, occupations, high school, college. We have a very long, detailed form that these people are filling out. And quite frankly, a lot of them are in their 50s or senior citizens that are reporting these things. And, I have to take the witness at their word when I'm investigating something. And, of course, a good photo is a great attachment if they do have a photo of something. But 9 times out of 10, we're basically only getting statements from witnesses. And sometimes the videos and sometimes the photos they send us are just the worst. I mean, I don't even look at the videos anymore because, 9 out of 10 videos are, you have no idea what this person tried to video. And then some of the photos are just some of the worst you can ever see, but sometimes we get lucky and these people are sending things to us that I think a lot of them saw an alien craft in the sky, and I'm just thrilled to death that they were able to report this to MUFON.
Yeah. Now, up on the message board, a lot of people were talking about how easy it is to fake pictures, and I think it's only going to get worse myself. And so how does someone like you try to guard against, I mean, you don't have anything that I saw right off the bat that looks like a fake CGI or something like that. But how can any one of us guard ourselves? It's going to get even worse as time goes on.
Well, first of all, most of the people who even say the word CGI, it's CGI, looks like CGI. These are basically, I feel a lot of them are debunkers hiding in plain sight, or these are people who just don't want to believe. Mm-hmm. They just don't want to believe it. So they just write it off as, it's fake. It has to be fake. But, with a photo, what you can do, you can spot some fakes, and I've done that in the past, and I still do today, of course. And, of course, enlarging the photo, if you enlarge the photo, you can see the pixels, come in as a box sometimes around these photos that they try to crop in or or add, copy and paste into a photo. We also have EXIF information. That's exchangeable information. A lot of people don't realize it, but on your phone, on these digital cameras, there is information that is attached to every photo you take. And if you right-click on a photo, if you download your photo to, I downloaded the photo gallery here on my HP laptop, desktop, and if you right-click on the photo, a lot of information will come up. Now, depending on the camera that you have, there's even some digital cameras out there that will give you the longitude and latitude where you were standing when you took the photo. So sometimes looking at this EXIF information, exchangeable information on each photo, we can sometimes spot, something strange. Maybe the dates are way off. Somebody's reporting this sighting last week, and here the dates on the EXI information is 2012. So there's ways of now myself, I don't have the expensive equipment to analyze all these photos, but basically my job is I'm putting these photos out there. I'm letting you do the research. I'm going to let you check it out and Google it and see see the story behind each photo. I'm not going to do the job for you. You're going to do it. I'm just putting the information out there is all I'm doing. And of course, there's a lot of photos that don't even get on my website, worldufophotos.org, because you can tell that that some of them are bugs or some of them are just ridiculous. Some are CGI. Things like this don't even. I've deleted thousands of photos that just didn't make the cut for my website.
Now, do you have? Just because I don't have it up here in front of me, do you have places where people can comment under a photo? Is that an availability?
Yes, on my website, you can you comment on worldufophotos.org and my worldufophotos.news.org. Yeah, I have comment sections there where you can put. And all my comments are positive. It's very rare that I get someone that says, "Oh, it's CGI," or "You're stupid," or it's funny.
Yeah, there are those people out there that will,
I love it.
So now in our show notes, the person listening now, or if you're listening later as a podcast, you can go to podcastufo.com and see the show notes with this show. And if you click on the link. If you're live right now, if you wanted to click on the link, the chat room will stay there. It'll say read more, and you can see all these other images. We're going to be talking about some of those. So if the listener live right now would like to jump in by clicking that read more, the chat room will still stay there. So on these pictures that you sent, now I'm sorry they're not up there under order. I just didn't have time today to put them in order.
Well, you just give me the number of the photo, and I have all the information here on my computer system, so they don't have to be in order. So
Now, someone asked earlier if you thought that we actually landed on the moon. That was just one of the questions we had.
In today's world, yes. But I don't think we did back in 669. I don't think we had the technology to do it. As a matter of fact, on worldufophotos.org, I have a moon gallery, and I have tons of information on there, tons of photos debunking this whole moon landing. I just don't think we honestly. Maybe I'm sure today we do. Who knows what we're doing today on the moon or the dark side of the moon? But with even when I saw the landing on the moon in '69, I was 19 years old, and it's something I'll never forget. But I've always walked away from the videos that they presented, the movie, the video they presented about the moon landing. Even when it happened, that that the surface of the moon was they tell us it was a very powdery dust, like almost like a talcum powder type of a surface. And when this pod landed, when the eagle landed, and the thrusters and the jets and everything were exploding on the ground, basically, trying to slow this vehicle down to land. I mean, I would think that there would be a cloud of dust that would have been in the air for a long time. And then when he, walks down off of the ladder there and says, "This is the first step for man," blah, 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 he steps into a 2 inches of talcum powder surface. And I'm saying, how the hell is that possible? That's the number one thing that kind of made me disbelieve the whole thing. I think there was just too much pressure. Kennedy, he promised we'd be on the moon by 1970, by the end of the decade, and the Russians had Sputniks flying around in the sky, and we were trying to beat the Russians at trying to get a man in orbit, and quite frankly, I think they faked the whole thing.
Wow. Okay. Well, I think we're going to have to disagree on that one, but that's we can move on. I've actually you can actually see one of the lunar landers on the moon. There's.
Oh well, now I'm saying today.
Yeah, I know it's hard to believe
we can go to the moon without a problem, and
it's hard to believe with the technology.
Crazy to you, but maybe they're dropping all this crap on the moon, trying to cover their asses that they never went.
Okay, all right.
That's the way I look at it.
I've actually had a number of conversations with Alan Bean, number 4 on the moon, and he deals with this all the time. With people that have your opinion, and he says, I'm through trying to convince anyone. I know where I was standing, and I know what it was like. I was there, and he's now an artist, and actually has taken some of the moon dust that he had on his shoes that he was not supposed to take home, but he did. He's actually put it in some of his paintings. But Alan Bean, great artist, actually. Anyway,
that's cool.
Yeah,
no, I respect anyone who believes that we went to the moon, but I think a lot of people just don't want to believe that we didn't go. And like I said, look on my moon gallery at the worldufophotos.org, and there I got some dynamite stuff on there that kind of shoots this whole thing down, I think. Okay,
all right. And so, how have you talked about this? I know there's there's a lot of controversy, and but have you talked about this publicly and have debated anyone on this issue?
I've talked about it on the radio many times. I've been on many radio shows, and every time somebody brings it up, I tell them how I feel and how a lot of other people feel. You can Google fake moon landing on the computer and read for days of all the people who don't agree that we went, and some scientists and people that. People who had really nothing to lose by saying that we didn't go, kind of. So
yeah, I've heard the Stanley
really
back
knows?
And all that, but I think that anything that's incredible that happens, no matter what it is, bad, good. I mean, there's people conspirating against the Sandy Hook saying it never happened, and 9/11 was an inside job and all that stuff. And I personally, I just don't want to get into any of that because I don't.
No, I understand.
I don't buy into that myself. But
it's basically like this first photo I was going to talk about, the one about the alleged photo of an alien disc on an aircraft carrier. I mean, this thing's been kicked around. I thought it was very interesting. Like I say, I'm putting this information out there for people to research. People to basically come up with their own conclusion. I'm not an investigative. I'm not here to prove this or prove that. My job is to put the information out there that I feel is real.
Okay, and what number photo is that on the?
That would be photo 1.
Photo 1. Okay.
Yeah, it's a disc on an aircraft carrier.
Okay. It looks. This is a likeness or something?
No, it's supposed to be a real thing.
That's supposed to be a real photo?
That's what these people are claiming. Not me. I'm just like I said, I'm just putting out there with what I pick up, and part of it is the Navy. I guess debunked it in their own way, by cropping out the saucer on the deck and filling in the deck and even putting the ship in the background. So you can go either way with who, why, and if someone photoshopped or did a CGI on this photo. But I got a story behind it. If you want me to go for it.
Yeah, the photo doesn't. To me, I don't know. Maybe it's just a copy of it right here, but it.
No, it's an old photo. I mean, it's a.
I mean, it almost looks.
It's
Well, part of it looks
photo,
like almost like a drawing or something.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Now, it says here that an alleged photo of a flying saucer landing on the flight deck of an aircraft carrier is genuine, according to William Tompkins. He's a retired aerospace engineer who had a four-decade career with leading U.S. corporations up until 1984. The timeline was just before the Vietnam War, and it was on the USS Carl C. Now, I've read reports where this was on the USS Roosevelt, so there's a controversy right there. Tompkins' career began with service as a naval intelligence operative from 1942 to 1946, where he provided intelligence briefings to select U.S. aerospace corporations about anti-gravity spacecraft being secretly developed in Nazi Germany. He had supplied several documents supporting his claims that he had assigned such a convert mission and operated out of Naval Air Station San Diego. Tompkins discussed the photo in a rare interview on May 4th. I believe it was on Rents. I think George Farley was on at the time, and claimed that it was taken from one of what were regular incidents on U.S. naval aircraft carriers, landings by friendly Nordic extraterrestrial UFOs. Now, that sounds way out there to me, but quite frankly, Martin, I really, these days, I think anything is possible. I mean, if one of these alien craft exist, if all the photos I have on my website, I got over 9,000 photos, if one of them are real, then anything is possible. Continuing here, it says it's one of quite a number of Nordic extraterrestrial UFOs.
Okay, hang on just a moment, if you would, please. We do have a caller, a caller on the line. Hello, caller. Oh, he hung up. We just lost him.
Oh, okay.
All right, caller, you're welcome to call back if you'd like. I know I interrupted you, and if you wanted to continue, we don't have to stay on that particular photo, though, because there are some ones that that to me looks, in my opinion, as someone that does a lot of appraising, and I'm a very visual person as far as that goes, and to me that doesn't, I know there's quite a story with it, but to me, there's something really fishy about that, and I'm going to say it looks like a drawing.
I don't know. It's again, we're guessing. So,
yeah.
But like I said, if one of these alien craft exists, then quite frankly, I think anything possible, especially with our military. But this is up for the viewers and anyone else who sees this on my website to decide. But it was interesting, that's for sure.
All right, I want to talk quickly about, we're going to be bouncing around a little bit with these numbers, but number 9 is the King City, Oregon. Looks like an orb to me. And by the way, for the person that was calling in, please feel free to call back. I couldn't connect you. But anyway, so that was taken on the 2nd of February this year?
Yeah, February 2nd, 2016, in King City, Oregon. I wanted to present this photo because this is, quite frankly, it's a pretty good example of the kind of orb photos that we get. It's a little blurry. I probably could have enhanced it and made it a little bit better to view, but a lot of these photos I try to keep as original as I can. But basically, the story behind this was I was sitting on my apartment balcony after dinner and having half a cigarette, messing around on my iPhone and occasionally looking up at the stars. I can't remember how it came to my attention, but I noticed the first bright object and suddenly realized it didn't look like any kind of known aircraft or anything. So I immediately turned the video filming function on my phone to film it. I started filming it, and after a minute or so, I believe, I decided to grab my husband inside to tell him to come watch with me. Everything said is in the video. He came out to watch it with me, with my two sons, age 9 and 12, came out as well to watch. You can hear them all commenting during the video. Unfortunately, my iPhone completely sucked at capturing how bright these objects were and didn't even pick them up at the end, but I still couldn't help but film it because it was so odd-looking. So first I saw the one object glowing very brightly, and then a second object came up near it. It both seemed to pulsate, I guess would be the right word. They didn't seem to be following general laws of gravity or propulsion. Quick redirects, slight morphing of shape, extremely quick movements, and then hovers. So that's telling me right there it's not a Chinese lantern.
Yeah.
The third object was visible for a brief moment, but quickly disappeared where the other first showed up. We lost sight of them because they simply disappeared in the thin air. They seemed to pulse out. They looked like they were made of fire, but not burning in a fire way, almost like a glowing coal or something. It's very difficult to explain. They were completely silent and behind some very tall fir trees for a good portion of the sighting. It was hard to tell how far away they were or how large they were. Their apparent size was a tiny bit smaller than a pea. So I guess if you were holding the pea out between your two fingers, that was probably about the size of them. They seemed to glow a different shade of reddish orange inside the center of the darker outer glowing shade, but I could not identify any structural details aside from the illusion of a spherical shape that slightly morphed several times into a less perfect sphere shape. I felt excited to see these things, and my son and husband were very interested as well, and we were interested in what they may be, but none of us had any idea that other than being UFOs. So, this was an interesting photo I thought I'd present.
Yeah. Hey, we have a caller on the line, so hang on if you would. Caller, thanks for calling in your name.
My name is Angel Espino.
Oh, Angel, how you doing? That's right. I told you to call in. I forgot all about that. So, Angel, this is for the listening audience out there. I am joining Angel's network. And what's going to happen for all of those of you in the chat room right now and listening live on my website, don't panic. Nothing's going to change. The player will be embedded. I'm just not going to use my own streaming service anymore. The player for the station will be embedded right where this player is right now. And what's going to happen, though, it's going to be over on the network. There's going to be another chat room over there. There's an active chat room on Skype there. But I don't want to confuse the live listener who's been dedicated to listening right here. So, Angel, why don't you talk a little bit about the network?
PSN Radio, it's been around for about 7.5 years, and we're just very excited to have you on board with us, my friend. It's great news to hear that you finally are coming on board and joining this great network. And nothing's going to change for your audience. Again, like you said, if they're used to already being in the same chat room, they're going to be in the same chat room. We're just trying to make it, all much more entertaining and much more fun for them, and hopefully they enjoy the change.
Yeah, so
like I said, it's been on for 7.5 years now, and we got some of the best talk shows on the internet. And with your show on there now, I think taking it to another level, my friend.
And I believe the player will be on, so someone could actually be on my site on another night and be listening too. Is that right?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So anyway, so that feed will be up before the show next week, and we have the show. Now, I don't know if you were listening to the guests at all, or if you had any questions, or you just if you just came on to announce that.
I just called to announce that, but I was listening while I was, on hold, and it sounded fascinating. I didn't hear the beginning of the interview, so I want to go back now and listen to the entire podcast. And it sounds like fascinating. You guys are talking about.
All right. Well, hey, thanks so much, Angel, and looking forward to joining your station next week. It's the same time, 8 to 10 Eastern Standard Time. So nothing is really changing for the live listener. And so thanks again, Angel. I appreciate it.
Welcome on board, my friend. It's a pleasure and honor to have you on PSN Radio, and can't wait to work together with you. And hopefully the audience loves what we bring along with you for the future.
Right. Okay. Excellent. Thanks a lot.
Take care, my friend.
All right.
Night, everybody.
Take care. Yeah. All right. So that's it for the free part of our show. Thank you for listening. And remember, if you'd like to support the show for as little as $2 a month or more, or make a one-time yearly payment once a year, you can put this podcast in all of the media players that are out there. It's very easy. It's a one-time setup. And I want to thank some people for helping out with the show today. Alejandro Rojas with the news. We had Bruce Rainier with the recording you heard there, and just before the guest, the intro and outro, Carrie Lloyd Whitehouse. Thank you all. And Keith Rowland, thank you for putting us on the Dark Matter Digital Network. And also, don't forget, next week, I think, is going to be my most important interview. I sure hope it is. I think it's going to be really fascinating with Christopher Mellon. So, again, check out the article in the Huffington Post on Chris Mellon and related to UFOs. You can Google it that way. All right, so we'll be back next week, and thanks again for listening. Remember to keep your eyes to the sky.